Meet Eddie Enzyme. Eddie catalyzes the reaction of a date and has a binding specificity towards Sally Substrate, the love of his life. They have been in a steady-state relationship for quite some time now, and tonight, Eddie is preparing for another lovely rendezvous. During their reaction, Eddie Enzyme binds to Sally Substrate in a passionate embrace. And when they release from each other, the date produces happiness and love. Eddie Enzyme has always loved Sally Substrate, so he is unchanged during these reactions. Like other enzyme-catalyzed reactions, the dates that Eddie Enzyme catalyzes each have a velocity v and a rate constant km. In this example, the velocity of the date corresponds to the quality of the date, with Vmax representing the most romantic date possible that Eddie Enzyme could take Sally Substrate on. The rate constant of the date, km, corresponds to the likelihood of Sally Substrate going on another date with Eddie Enzyme in the future. It looks like Eddie Enzyme has some impressing to do for tonight's reaction. But little does Eddie Enzyme know that two of his less pleasant friends have come to town. And if they encounter Eddie and Sally, they are bound to, if you will, inhibit their reaction. This is Igor. Igor is an old acquaintance of Eddie Enzyme's, but they haven't kept in contact because Igor is a competitive inhibitor and was too aggressive and manipulative towards Eddie's personal life. If only Eddie knew that Igor was back, his date may not have been competitively inhibited.
Hello, Mr. Enzyme.
Hi, Igor.
What are you doing this fine day?
I'm actually going to pick up Sally Substrate for our date.
Interesting. I would like to ask you for a favor. Could you please drive me to the grocery store beforehand?
But I'm gonna be late to pick up Sally.
Eddie, you owe me for last time.
Now that Igor, the competitive inhibitor, has binded to Eddie, the reaction, or date, is inhibited. Igor, the competitive inhibitor, has made Eddie miss his date, and as a result, the binding between Eddie Enzyme and Sally Substrate never happened. In this instance, the Vmax of the reaction does not change because it never happened. The quality of the date could have been great, but Eddie and Sally never met to bind and find out. Km, on the other hand, increases because Sally did not get to see Eddie, and the likelihood of her wanting to go out with him again goes up. Luckily for Eddie, he'll just have to go on another date with Sally to make up for it. This is Ichabod. Like Igor, Ichabod is a long-gone friend of Eddie's, whom Eddie does not want to see. Unlike Igor, Ichabod is a non-competitive inhibitor, and will bind to an enzyme and substrate, like Eddie and Sally, who are already binding, effectively ruining the reaction, or date. Ichabod really wants to see Eddie after all this time, and his new girlfriend. This is going to be a very awkward date.
Eddie, who's that?
That's Ichabod.
Hi, Anna! Is this your girlfriend?
Hi, I'm Sally.
Whoa, we'd better be...
Can I join you guys? Oh my god!
Ugh, now that was painful to watch. Eddie Enzyme and Sally Substrate clearly did not have a good time. They never got to finish their reaction as planned. Because Ichabod bound to Eddie and Sally together, their reaction started but was ruined by an unexpected third wheel. In this attempted date, Vmax decreased because the quality of the date was awful with Ichabod around. Because this was such a poor date, the Km of the reaction also decreased, meaning that Sally Substrate will be feeling less inclined to go on another date with Eddie Enzyme. Poor Eddie. He better make it up to her soon and make sure that Ichabod is nowhere in sight. In this final nightmare scenario, both Igor the competitive inhibitor and Ichabod the non-competitive inhibitor are in town at the same time and will both encounter Eddie Enzyme. What terrible luck! Eddie is slowed down by Igor on his way to pick up Sally's substrate, and when he finally gets around to reaching her, Ichabod also tags along. Similar to non-competitive inhibition, both the Vmax and Km of the date decrease significantly, meaning that not only was the date very poor, but Sally and Eddie are also less likely to bind together again in the future. This horrendous happenstance is known as mixed inhibition, where Eddie enzyme is inhibited both before and while he is attempting to bind with Sally substrate. With inhibitors like Igor and Ichabod around, things haven't been going well for Eddie enzyme and Sally substrate's love life. Luckily, if you're an enzyme and there are no inhibitors in sight, you should be able to catalyze your reaction smoothly. So remember, kids, stay away from inhibitors, and be sure to bind your substrate tightly every chance you get.